Hey guys, welcome to our SoulFam Podcast, where I interview space holders from all over the world. I'm your host, my name is Karolina, and I am the manifestation mentor and connection catalyst. Today on the show, we have Melissa Moffet, the spiritual business coach. Welcome to the show, Melissa. How are you doing?
I'm so happy to be here. So excited to connect with you and all of your listeners. So thank you for having me on. I'm so excited to get into it.
Oh, me too. I'm so excited to talk to you because, as I mentioned before we started recording, that I selfishly have some questions to you that I'm going to benefit from. So, certainly for all the people who listen, they will benefit from it too. Because, yeah, I'm still working on my business. I'm on the path of, being a healer, helping people. And I feel like this is what you are doing, like helping healers, helping people who are into the holistic and spiritual approach to get their business going. So, it's really exciting for me to have you on and to just talk about all these beautiful things. But I would love to start with a little bit of a backstory so people can get to know you and know where you come from and where this passion for healing and for helping spiritual businesses came from in your life.
Yeah. So, oh my goodness. I mean, like everyone, it's a long story. So I'll try to, condense it a bit. But I grew up in a very, very rural area in the southern United States in Tennessee. There was no like healing wasn't a thing there. There was no like meditation, spirituality, all of that kind of stuff. And I came from a lot of childhood trauma, like so many people who get into spirituality and healing, so much childhood trauma. So by the time I was about 15, I was like deeply just like repressed and horribly anxious, migraines, having physical symptoms, mental symptoms, just from like
Wow.
years of experiencing that much trauma. And that's when my own personal healing journey began at that age. And it continued throughout the years. Thanks to the internet, started to find different modalities, learned about meditation, started meditation practice when I was 18. I
Wow,
was
that's
becoming an
early.
engineer. It was early, yeah, but I looked and I remember reading this on Mind Body Green, and they were like, meditation will help reduce your anxiety. And I was like, okay. And next thing I know, my whole life is changing from the practice. And I started questioning my reality because I was becoming an engineer just because like that's what I was good at math and science. That's what people told me to do. I was like,
Me
okay.
too.
And was quickly, oh really? Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. I was quickly becoming very jaded and very just like, why am I doing this? Burning out, all of that kind of stuff. And I started I wanted a creative outlet, so I started sharing on social media, and I actually grew an account to 40,000 people before I ever started a business. And that was just from sharing my story and writing. And it was this
Wow.
incredible outlet for me to connect with people and just be creative. And I was like, and I saw that there were entrepreneurs out there making a living using social media. And so a couple years into this, I was like, maybe I can do something like this, but I put it off. I was like, maybe in 5 years, 10 years, when things are more stable, when I have, a savings account and all this kind of stuff. And then there were a few key things that happened that were the big catalyst in me jumping into it pretty cold turkey. I had a couple of near death experiences. It was like the universe was trying to wake me up, a couple of like accidents happening, like
A
random things where
couple?
I was like,
Not only
oh,
one?
yeah,
What the
no,
hell? Are
more
you
than one.
serious?
Yeah, yes.
That's
And
crazy.
yeah, just like I never got hurt. Well, one time I got a little hurt, but I never got physically hurt, thankfully. But it was just a couple of things where I was like, wow, life is really short. Like I could have just died. Like, and then in that time period too, my dad got sick, which he's great now, thankfully. Well, he's okay, but he's not, we were like not sure if he was gonna make it, that whole kind of thing. And by this point, I was working as an engineer. I only lasted about 6 months actually in the field. And I just reached this point. It was like a breaking point where I was like, life was just throwing things at me and trying to wake me up. And so I had never sold anything. I had about 40,000 followers. I knew I loved meditation. And so I started prepping for creating a podcast and creating a guided meditation album and an ebook. And I quit my job and I released the guided meditation album a week later. Then I realized that I was horrified about business and money when it was, put in my face that way, like, oh, I'm like not getting a paycheck. What do I do? I realized I was super like anxious around money, avoidant around money, and I started getting interested in the business side of things. I grew my business to, just from being someone who was teaching meditation and personal development, I grew my business to multiple 5-figure months. Enjoyed the money side of things, the business side of things. So I started publicly teaching on those things. And so it's just been a mixture of all of these things over the last couple of years, using spirituality, using meditation, using healing on our journey of creating businesses. And I get to work with like the most amazing entrepreneurial humans who are just like innovators and such huge hearts and love their work. And it's been an incredible journey and I love it so much.
Wow, that's awesome. That's amazing. But these near-death experiences are crazy. It's kind of like a wake-up call. It's like a universe knocking to your door, like, hello, appreciate more your life. Hello, maybe there are some changes that need to be done. It's so crazy how this works, right? Like how all these synchronicities bring us the awareness of like, hello, maybe you need to look at your life differently, right? That's so cool. I love this story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks so much for
It
sharing.
was huge wake-up calls. Yeah, of course.
I can imagine that. I really can imagine. And so you work with people who are into like healing and they have like spiritual business, right? So what do you find are the biggest blocks that people have? Because from what I've seen anyway, on my journey is like a lot of people who are into spirituality, they struggle with the relationship with money because it's almost like, oh, you're spiritual, so you should be like ascetic. Like you should not have all these material things because money is not spiritual. Like that's the biggest belief I see that blocks people who are into this work to make more money, right? And there are also other things like desirability of money, like not liking rich people and things like that. But I'm curious to know, what do you feel are the biggest block to money and to business as well, because it's kind of interconnected, but maybe it's something that we can separately talk about as well for all these people who are in this branch, let's say, of spiritual businesses.
Three things I would say for spiritual business owners. One, you already touched on it, that feeling that money and spirituality have to conflict. I remember when I was first starting my business, I made about $4,000 a month as an engineer, maybe like 5,000. And I told myself, I don't want to make more than that because I will become a bad person. That's where my mind was. You know what I mean? I was so like, if I make a lot of money, I will become a bad person because that's what money does to you. And I really had to rewrite a lot of that programming. And I'm actually way more aligned with my values than ever before. My fiance and I live in a completely eco home that we were able to purchase and act as land stewards for the animals who are here and travel across the land. And we've created a nonprofit for a Buddhist foundation and are working on growing an endowment and all that kind of stuff. So it's like I've learned that money can actually be such a supporter for your values and for your service to the world, and also just like the necessary truth that if you're going to be taking care of lots of people, I've had thousands of clients now, and I have to take extremely well care of myself. I have to take so much more. I have to receive so much more, and from healers, from mentors, from a team, because I can't do it all by myself, all of that, right? The two other things I would say, one, I think that there can be a bit of a resistance to structure for spiritual entrepreneurs, for
Yes,
with
for sure.
organization, with automation, with studying about like the tangible aspects of finances. So actually treating your business as a business, having it be, and I'm not saying that you have to have all these crazy funnels. I have an extremely simple business, but like actually having that support system, that structure that can support your flow. And the third thing I would say, and this is for a lot of entrepreneurs, is the feeling of trusting yourself, the feeling of following your own channel, your own voice. There's so often that we look for like this magic pill, or we're looking for the answers, or we're looking for someone to tell us what to do, or we look at a certain coach and we're like, well, they did it that way, so if I just set up my business that way, it'll work for me. And we look for someone to save us, because entrepreneurship is really, it's really getting you intimate with the mystery of life. It really gets you intimate with how uncertain things are very quickly. You don't know where your next client is going to come from. You don't know where your next payment is going to come in. You're like making things up as you go along. You're fully relying on creativity, all that kind of stuff. And it's so easy for us to say, and I've done this and spent a lot of money on trying to do this. It's very easy for us to be like, well, can someone just tell me what to do? Can someone just give me the answers? And we have to find this discernment, this like middle way of, can I be listening and learning from people, but also blazing my own trail and listening to my own intuition? And I've just seen so many people again and again that that's how you're going to have the most holistic success, right? There's people out there who will set up their businesses a way that they think will work, and it might work that way. And I've seen people create multi-7-figure businesses based off someone else's model, and then they burn out and they have to close it down, and they can't sustain it because it's not who they are. It's not their path. It's not aligned with their design and their beingness. So it's really this discernment of learning and listening while still trusting your own inner wisdom with how your personal business, your specific, unique business is supposed to be blueprinted.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I've seen this in myself as well, like a few years ago, but it's coming from more like a victim mentality, not creator mentality, right? Where someone just give me the answers and then I will just follow it and then it's going to work. But actually, if it's going to be in misalignment for you, like even, for example, if you don't like speaking to camera, if you're going to have to speak to the camera every day for a year because someone else succeeded like this, you're going to just feel resistance after a month or 2 months or 3 months. And then you're going to end up after a year just hating your life, right? It's the same as we are engineers. Like when I was working on my master thesis about sustainable energy, right? Because I'm a master of sustainable energy. And I was working in a cafe in front of the road. I was working in 2 places, right? I was working with my thesis and working in a cafe as a barista. And I loved working as a barista. And I'm like, I probably should not be an engineer if I prefer to make coffee for people rather than calculating some heat pumps stuff or like some, electricity or whatever. I'm just like, okay, maybe it's not in alignment with me, right? I would be depressed if I worked in sustainable energy per se. Now I work with sustainable human energy and it's amazing. But like if I was there just stuck in my engineer vibe, I would hate my life. Like, honestly, that's what would happen. And it's the same if you apply someone else's stuff to your life, because this was someone else's idea that I should get a job, I should be successful, I should go corpo, I should climb up the ladder and so on, right? And it's the same kind of principle. If you just follow someone else's voice and not your own, then you're going to fail. And you're going to fail only because you're going to give it up. And you're going to stop doing that at some point because you're going to have so much resistance inside that it's kind of like running in the mud. It's like you just can't do it at some point, right? It's just like too much. And so having said all that, like, what do you feel is the best way to like develop this trust? Because, trust is a thing that can be very shaken by different things in our life, right? And for example, for me, for a person with abandonment wound, when I learned that I cannot trust my father, for example, because he left, and then I copy pasted this lack of trust on life, on God, on universe, on everything, right? Because we copy paste things that we feel about our parents on everything else in our life, on the relationship to life itself. So when I, for example, had trust issues with my parents or one of my parents, and then I have this, let's say, unsafety or lack of trust inside, what's the best way you would say that is the best to develop? Because also being gaslit as a child, right? In my case, it wasn't really on purpose that I was gaslit, but for example, my mom didn't want to tell me that my parents just got divorced, she was like, okay, you know, you live with your mom and I live with my mom, so then your dad went to live with his mom, and like that's what it is. But it was gaslighting, right? So then I started doubting myself and my own like heart and what I feel is true. And of course it wasn't on purpose, and like I love my mom dearly, she wanted to protect me, but so many of us have these gaslighting, even unconscious gaslighting, and not on purpose gaslighting in our life. And then we have abandonment wounds or have other wounds that make us feel like we can't trust life, we can't trust ourselves, we can't trust our intuition. We need these external forces to help us, right? So how would you go about like resolving it? Because like I have my own methods of handling it, but I'm curious about yours first to share with the audience, like what to do about this lack of trust.
Yeah. So I think first of all, it's understanding that it's going to be a lifelong practice, that you're going to have times where you don't trust yourself, where you perhaps mess things up. For me, I am a 1-3 generator. 1-3s make all the right wrong moves. So we're constantly learning through our mistakes and through, we kind of like jumble around and just like run into things and do a lot of trial and error. So I think there's something to say around being okay with making mistakes, having compassion for yourself, and being able to forgive yourself when you thought you trusted yourself, but perhaps you made the wrong decision, or you did something that you thought was out of empowerment, but it was actually still from that like victim mentality kind of place. A lot of compassion for ourselves, because we're not going to be empowered all the time. We're not going to like fully trust ourselves all the time. It's okay, right? And I would also say that having a very consistent daily practice where you're going deep into some sort of certain practice that gives you that ability to hear your own inner wisdom, right? Whether that be a meditation practice, whether you're involved in a spiritual lineage, whether you are doing somatic practices, or, you know, tea ceremony, whatever it is, or a mixture of different things. Having that foundation every morning before you're getting up and like consuming content or even going into creator mode, for me, that practice of just being and having space to listen and having space to be opening up my own channel and opening up my own connection with life and just listening, really listening, you know, whether that be going out into nature, whatever it is, but really make sure that we have this balance, and that the listening to ourselves is always outweighing the listening to all the noise and the content and the mentors and all this kind of stuff. And through years of doing those kind of practices, it compounds over time, and you just develop more and more of an understanding of how you function, how you operate, what kind of environment can you set up so that you can thrive, what does work in your business, what doesn't. You gain more clarity over what causes create the effects that you're looking for. So yeah, that's what I would say about that. What about you?
Well, I mean, thank you for sharing that. This is awesome, and I really resonate with like listening to your higher self, really, to your intuition. Because if you're always like busy with something in your mind, or looking for something, or creating content, or watching content, or whatever, then you don't actually really hear what is inside and what is the message that tries to flow through you. So yeah, I really resonate with what you said, and that's what I do as well. I really do my best to not reach for my phone first thing in the morning, to just meditate, sit with myself, do some yoga, and only then check my messages and things like that. So that helps a lot. But of course I do a lot of like internal work with the subconscious mind. I'm feeling into the lack of trust that I feel, I'm feeling into the uncertainty, unsafety, and so on, and I'm just going back through the processes that I've learned, to these original memories, these childhood traumas that have been causing me to feel like that, right? All these abandonment wounds, all these things. And also I do a lot of mindset work, like belief work, to shape my beliefs for like, I trust myself, I trust life, everything is safe, I have certainty in myself. And I feel like one thing that I want to add to it is the perspective that one of my besties presented it to me once, where he said like, certainty is not a matter of making the right decision. it's a matter of making a decision. It's kind of like I don't know how he said it, I paraphrase it right now, but the energy of certainty doesn't mean that you're not going to make mistakes, right? The energy of certainty is just going for it and just trusting yourself that this is the right decision. Even if you fuck it up, it was maybe the right decision for your soul to learn something, or maybe to meet this person, or maybe to learn this lesson, or maybe to get triggered with this and then go through your emotions, right? So certainty is the energy. It is kind of regardless of whether the outcome of your decision is right or wrong, quote unquote, because I think that all the decisions that we make are the right decisions for us from the higher perspective, right? Because then we can heal, we can learn, we can see what mistakes we have made, and then go from there, and then actually like build up on our way to success. But actually, like, it really landed with me when he said that certainty is like about just going for it. It's not about whether the choice that you're making is right or wrong. And you can be completely wrong, but you can still be certain, right? And he was like, I'm happy to be wrong. Like, I'm certain in my decisions, but I'm happy to be wrong. It's like, if I'm wrong, it doesn't like disregard my certainty. It doesn't shake it, because it's not about it. It's like a separate thing, whether the decision was quote unquote right or wrong. And you can still have the energy of certainty and still make mistakes. So you can still trust yourself, because I feel like trust and certainty are very interconnected, right? So you can still trust yourself and have certainty in your decisions, and at the same time make mistakes and learn from them and be open to making them. So I'm curious to know your thoughts about what I just said.
Yeah. So that really reminds me of something I talk about. There's two concepts I talk about a lot in business. One is what you're just talking about now, and I call it unconditional commitment, right? So like allowing yourself to experience the full spectrum of what business brings to you, of what entrepreneurship brings to you. And the second concept is just shooting your shot. This is something I talk about in sales a lot, because so often we're getting into our heads and we're like, what's the right way to say things? What's the wrong way to say things? And it's really like, if you think about it, if you're like a basketball player, right? If you're practicing basketball, you're not trying to like get every single shot. You're practicing, you're shooting your shot. And so this is how I can help people like get so in their heads about doing sales to just being really like easy and really just sharing their offers, because they're just shooting the shot. They're just saying, hey, here's what I have. Here's what's available. Here's the transformation, all this kind of stuff. So I 100% agree with you. It's not about doing things right or wrong. It's about, are you unconditionally committed, even if it takes longer than you think it should, even if your judgments and your projections come up? Why are you even doing this? What's the intention? Are you in this to reach some milestone? Or are you in this for the journey? Are you in this for the personal development and for the service? Like, what's the whole reason? And then just us seeing every day that we're in our businesses and in our lives like a practice, not like we're, like every launch is the launch. Like this is the championship game that ends the season. No, this season doesn't end. It continues, it cycles, it's all practice, and it all compounds. And I think that when you approach it that way, you can do bigger things. You can go after bigger things. You can experiment more. You can innovate more. You can try new things, because there's not as much pressure. There's not as much like, oh, it has to be this certain way. And like, this is going to be the thing that saves me. And this has to turn out a certain way. And of course, it's easier said than done. We always have to I have to keep that awareness all the time. I'm doing something new just this weekend, a new kind of like sales event, and I have to keep coming back to like, wow, this is a fun experience. This is a fun experiment. And I'm just going to see with curiosity how it turns out, and just follow my heart and try it out. And maybe it'll be great. And maybe like no one will buy anything, but I'm going to be open to that and see what happens. And you're so much more receptive that way too. You learn lessons. Like you're saying, you see the value in the mistakes. You see the value in the bumps along the way. And I think it's absolutely beautiful to embrace your journey that way.
Yeah, I so much agree with that. And especially with this receptivity, because like if you're only open to some things, you're not actually letting the whole abundance of life flow through you, right? Because abundance is everything. And expansion is both ways. It's like if you want to experience more pleasure, you need to also experience your pain. It's like you're expanding the whole spectrum. So I actually have heard this, reminded me of this fact. My ex-partner, who is a savage business person, I mean, not that much anymore, but he was at the time. And he was saying that some people don't even do business with people who have never gone bankrupt. Because like if you have gone bankrupt and you rebuild this from scratch, you actually have so much more experience and so much more willpower and so much more just drive and motivation to actually get it going, right? So I just thought it's a funny concept that some people would not make business with people who have never failed, because then they are not sure that they have this power, they have this willingness, they have this encouragement and inner motivation to actually get this going even once again, even if they have to rebuild it from scratch. So I think it's a great perspective to just hold, right? To be open for anything, because it might as well be that someone will make business with you only if you failed somehow. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just a funny
Oh
concept,
my
but
gosh. I love this. And I have to tell you, at the end of 2021, so 2021, all right, let me backtrack a little bit. 2019 was my first full year in business. I made $50,000. Okay. In 2020, I 5x'd my business, made $250,000. Okay. And so I was convinced that when 2021 came, that I was going to like 5x again. I was going to keep it going at that rate and make at least $1 million. I didn't do that. I did like almost double my business, but I didn't 5x it. And there was a part of me, because I had that like projection, that felt like a failure. So I went and made this public post that was like, everybody was like making these celebration posts. I was like, I didn't make $1 million this year like I thought I would, and just wrote about learning from, and it wasn't a failure, right? Because like, anyway, but I like, I in my mind it felt like a failure because I had like built myself up so much. And I make this post, and in the next couple days, I can't tell you how many I probably made about $50,000 in sales in the next couple days from that post of me being like, I didn't meet my goal. I thought I was gonna like blow it out of the water, and I was
amazing.
disappointed. And I had so many people come forward and be like, I love this, like I want to work with you. So yeah, that's 100% true. I 100% agree with you.
That's so amazing. Wow, this is a great story. Thank you so much for sharing. And I'm curious to know also, because like now just this question came to my mind, because I feel like the feminine way of doing business is completely different than the masculine way. And I've learned a lot from different men that are high achievers in my life, because these were the only examples of people that have had successful businesses that I knew. But only recently I've actually started learning from women in business. And I discovered that feminine way is a completely different way of running business, right? So it's more about like being magnetic and actually like attracting people to you and being receptive to people coming to you, rather than reaching out and just being in your masculine like direction and energy. So how do you go about it? Meaning like, how do you balance masculine and feminine approach? And what kind of differences do you see when you guide people? I'm not sure if you only work with women or with men as well, or like everyone. And if you work with everyone, then what kind of differences do you see in the way that people do business that is just more beneficial and more natural to us as women, or more natural to men as men?
I work with everyone. So mainly women come through, but yeah, I have a range of trans, non-binary, and men come in as well. And men is probably the smallest of that group who work with me, but I do have men who come in. And I'm thinking about the men in my containers right now, but the way that I see the evolution of business and tactics is there has been a lot of masculinity in business for a long time, but for a long time there's also been a lot of wounded masculine. There's been a lot of like that dog eat dog, like I'm gonna get mine, competition based, like undercutting, all of that kind of stuff. So I think our responsibility as visionaries, as people who are creating businesses that are healthy, holistic, supportive, is not just incorporating the feminine, because you can incorporate the feminine. It can be the wounded feminine, right? It can be needy and still very self-centered and all this kind of stuff. But I think the most beautiful thing is when we can bridge the healed and empowered feminine and the healed and empowered masculine, right? So like the way I see it is the healed and empowered masculine is having these very strong containers, these very safe containers with for me, this looks like having policies, having agreements, having terms and conditions, having organization, having that back end structure, having financial structures in my business, having, you know, me having discipline. I call it devotional discipline, because so many of us have this like, oh, resistance to discipline, right? Because it's like, it feels like we have to like force ourselves to do things. But when we can drop into our hearts and say, why am I doing this? You know, this isn't just for me. This is for my service. This is for my evolution. It turns into devotional discipline. It turns into something where we can have this responsibility, but it's coming from a deeper place. And it's the same thing with the feminine, right? The wounded, the healed and empowered feminine that is more of a queenly, you know, state, where we're like, we're focusing more on collaboration and celebrating other entrepreneurs and uplifting each other and saying, well, if you win, then I win too. I'm so happy for you. This is so expansive. And yes, like you said, being magnetic, letting people come to you, really letting your heart space shine and be that, like, that's what's leading, that's what's marketing, you know? And so when those two things come together, and the healed and empowered feminine and the healed and empowered masculine can come together and create a business, I think that's the most beautiful thing. It's so incredible, and they support and uplift each other.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, I feel like for me, it's actually also aligned with the human design, I'm guessing, because my human design manifestor generator, and the strategy should be to respond. So for me, it's probably way better to be most of the time in my feminine energy, where I can respond and receive, right? Rather than like being go, go, go. And because I've learned from so many men, I was very much like, okay, I got to do this, I got to do that. But since I discovered that, okay, maybe I'm just like trying too hard, maybe it's just like too much, and I just let it go, things started flowing for me that I was just like, what the hell? Like, for example, like 2 weeks ago, I was just like, okay, screw this all, I'm not doing anything, I'm just gonna let it all be how it is. And literally in the last 2 weeks, I got maybe like 350 plus people following me on Instagram, because of some of the things that have been like reposted by some other people or whatever, or some reels going viral or whatever. And I'm like, I actually decided to do less, like almost nothing. And then I'm getting all these extra people coming to me, and I'm like, what the hell? I've tried so hard for so long to just like bring people to my account, right? And when I just let it all go, the change was rapid. Like, I don't even know if it wasn't even within a week. Like, I don't know exactly, because I was like off my Instagram for a week because I was on Envision Festival here in Costa Rica. But then I like come back to my Instagram, I'm like, where did these people even come from? It's like, you know, I was just like so pushing everything. But when you're coming from the pushing energy, and you don't have enough of this healthy feminine like receptivity, and you only go, go, go in your masculine, it's not serving at all. And I feel like it goes for men and women too, because if men are too pushy and they never allow themselves to receive, they also cannot make it all happen. For sure, it's going to be more aligned with them to just, you know, be in the masculine for most of the time, and maybe they can just be more successful like this. But I feel like, yeah, for everyone, it's so crucial to just like let things go sometimes, you know, just like let it work by itself. Make just let the miracles happen.
I'm the same way. So I'm also a responder. So like letting life come to me, all that kind of stuff. I love doing a practice where I just like feel life coming at me and just like, and like, what do I do from there? But I had this experience very similar where it's kind of gone in layers for me, because I think you understand, coming from that engineering background, we were like very trained that you just do the things, you know what I mean? And the first really experience I had around really deepening into my feminine, because I learned the a business initially that you do sales calls and you follow up with people and all that kind of stuff. And when I quit doing that and I started just letting people come to me, my business, that in a couple of months, right? And this is before I was a business coach. My business went from about 5K a month to 30K months in a matter of like five or 6 months. And then it deepened even more. And I had this experience where this was not last summer, but the summer before. I took 5 weeks completely off, where every once in a while, so I normally post almost every day because I just have things to share. It's coming through. But I was feeling really called. It was summertime. I just wanted to go camp. Like that's all I wanted to do for like a whole month was just like camp and stuff like that. And I was like, all right, I'm going to listen to that. And I was only online for about 6 days. I only posted about 6 times during those 5 weeks. And I had my biggest month ever. Someone came in and paid me $30K in cash for one-on-one coaching. I would be offline. Like there was one time I went camping for 4 days completely offline, came back to thousands of dollars for things I wasn't even promoting. And it was just like, and that moment was another deepening. And I was like, I really can just like, again, trust myself and listen to, if I need to go camp and be in the woods for a month, I should do that. And I'm going to be taken care of because that's me responding. That's me listening. That's me being in tune with life. And that's when I receive the best.
Beautiful. Oh my God, it's such a great story. So I hope that this is inspiring enough for all of you guys who listen to actually let things go sometimes and let it flow and let yourself relax and open up. Because when you're in the relaxed energy, you open the channels to receive even more. And when you're constantly like pushing and trying and going, then you never just like relax and just open up to receive. Wow, this story is amazing. And so like you let people come to you, but for sure you have some kind of let's say tactics that is maybe natural to you to be magnetic.
Yeah.
Like if you had to say like, okay, in a few words, like for all these people who want to become more magnetic and maybe they want to build their Instagram or some other social media account, what would be your advice to them to be magnetic, to attract people to you so that people actually come to you? You don't have to like reach out to get them.
A couple of things. I actually wrote about this morning. I'm opening a container called the space holder, and it's like the root of that container is like, are you in service heart? You know what I mean? Like, are you really caring about people? And I think when we have this combination of our creativity and our love really turned on, like if you are just letting love overflow and letting yourself move from love and letting yourself like express from love, people feel that, they trust that. And that's such a beautiful way to lead your business. So really letting love overflow, and you can feel that in your heart. And anytime you have that moment of like, you start to feel locked up and kind of like inward, and how am I going to take care of myself? And what about me? And do people see me and no one hears me? If it's like a lot of me, you know, it's time. Okay, I need to think about others. I need to take care of others. And I think the most magnetic people in the world are the people who are warm, the people who care and love about others. I think also practicing your power, right? Like practicing being seen in your strength, in your wisdom, in what you know and what you're good at, and claiming what you're good at and saying, yeah, this is what I have to offer. And this goes into sales, right? These are my offers. Just being really clear and trusting and believing, truly believing that people want to see what you have to share, and being grateful for every single person. So often it's so easy. We can say, well, I just have 400 followers, or I just had 3 likes on that post, or 1 comment, or whatever it is. If you're in that state, you have to practice getting grateful for that one person, because it's about personal human connection. It's not about numbers, right? We have to have a practice, especially when our businesses are online and on social media. We have to have a practice of caring about the individual humans. And yeah, that's what I would say about that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. It's really amazing. All these things I so resonate with because people actually buy your energy. They buy your love, they buy your care, they buy your service, they buy your just energy that you're radiating. Ultimately, I feel like that's what it is because either they resonate with you and they want to buy from you because it's your energy. Even if you do the same thing as any other person, they're gonna vibe with you. And you just need to like share this energy with the world and keep these relationships going. So thank you so much for sharing all that. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And so I have one last little question to you before we close the podcast. What is the best way for our listeners to find you if they would like to follow you, they would like to see more of your content, more of your offerings? What would be the best way?
Yeah, so my Instagram is Melissa Carey Moffet. It's spelled Cary. You can find me there. I love being on Instagram. I love connecting with people on Instagram. So that's a really great place to do it. I also have a podcast called Air and Earth. So air ampersand earth. And I have like maybe 140 episodes or something like that. So you can go tune in and I do interviews and all that kind of stuff. So those are the two places I'd say it's great to start a connection.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I hope maybe we can connect on your podcast one day as well. It would be cool to chat.
I would love
Amazing.
that. I would love that. That would be great.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Melissa. Everything that you shared was so valuable and it was so beautiful to connect with you. I'm super grateful that you came for our podcast. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you. I'm so grateful too. I love this conversation. Thank you for having me.